Hi there, and welcome to this masterclass. If you've been doing the internal work, but nothing really seems to be shifting anymore, it's for you if you're a leader who knows you're meant for more, but you feel stalled and stuck. It's definitely not a motivational talk, and it's really not about fixing yourself, because in fact, there is never anything to fix. It's about understanding what is actually in the way, what's keeping you from moving forward, and how to solve it. You could say, that you're operating from an outdated blueprint. And once you upgrade the blueprint, you upgrade the way that you're experiencing life. So in this session, we're going to cover why insights and discipline stops working at a certain level and what's the real cause of lack of progress and then how to shift it. We'll talk about that internal conflict that's quietly keeping you stuck. Many leaders feel like there's too much to do, they're always on. Everyone relies and depends on you, and it feels like there's never a break. Now, possibly you're starting to notice how the continuous running around is affecting you physically. Maybe you're skipping meals or not doing enough exercise, not resting enough. And maybe you've started to feel a bit disconnected from your loved ones. Relationships maybe are under strain, and you're starting to worry that you can't continue like this. What we're going to do is look at shifting from this self-pressure to internal leadership. And often we really find ourselves in the middle of really quite unrealistic expectations from the corporate world we're in, right? Which often means that burnout is being glorified. Now, many times, and I hear this from a lot of leaders that I speak to, many times we feel that loyalty means overworking and being a team player means that we're taking on more work for less. And very often we're expected to be a doer as well as a leader. And that actually leaves very little space and room to think. Now, most of us are conditioned to put others first and devalue ourselves, really, our health and our relationships, all in the spirit of performing in the workplace. Now, you may have started to realize that lasting change rarely happens in isolation. It's very difficult sometimes to make those changes on your own. Maybe you've started to realize that you may need someone to support you, to guide you, and to move you out of that stuck mode. So I'll explain at the end a little bit about how I work with my clients. And if that resonates with you, do reach out anytime. I would love to talk to you to get the ball rolling for you. And maybe if you're ready for your own transformational journey, this is the time to embark on that, right? Now, by the way, if you're looking for quick fixes for a hype or for surface level mind work, this masterclass is not for you. So just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get into it. Hopefully you got your Executive Balance Scorecard in preparation and it gave you some insights as to where you are on the burnout spectrum. And if you asked for the scorecard, then you would have also have received the workbook. No worries if you didn't. Just message me on LinkedIn or Facebook and we'll get it across to you. It's handy to have here, but you really don't need it to benefit from this masterclass right now. So make sure you have pen and paper handy to make some notes. We'll have a couple of exercises for you to go through during our time here together. And just to say that you're here, right? You've carved out time for you. Let's make the most of it. Take a deep breath, relax, and give yourself permission to focus and be present for this hour. Thank you for being here. Let's do it. First of all, I'd like you to write down something that you would love to have happen in the next 6 to 12 months. What would be something that would make the biggest positive difference for you in that time? Maybe it's a goal that you've been thinking about for a while, or a feeling that you're after, or a change that you'd like to make. And then think about what that would mean for you if you achieved that this year. How would you feel and what would you be doing? What would it mean for your loved ones if you achieved it this year? How could you show up for them? So I'll give you a moment to just write that down. Something you would love to have happen, something that would make the biggest positive difference for you in the next 6 to 12 months. And once you've got that, write down 2 things or more if you want that you believe have held you back or are still holding you back. Hopefully you've written that down. So now That probably has created a bit of clarity around that, right? So now that you have that clarity, what do you think needs to change? And a key question really, how committed are you to making a shift? Maybe score it 1 to 10, just gives you clarity for yourself, right? And maybe a 1 would mean you're not at all committed, and a 10 would mean you're totally committed. Now really is the time to make a change. So I'd like you to keep hold of that, and we're going to work a bit more with that when I've introduced myself properly. So my name is Caddy, and you'll know me as Kath if we were connected through my supply chain consultancy work. I'm 55, a single mom to my son Connor, who is now 23. I grew up in the Netherlands and have lived in England for many, many years now. So I'd like to tell you my story, really just to illustrate that things can be really bad and can get really good. And just so you can understand that if I can make that shift, for sure, you can do that too. So for many years, I was at Heinz, or Kraft Heinz as they know now, based in the UK, in lots of different roles in supply chain. And I've sort of rolled into logistics really. In 1992, I started at Heinz as a temp. We were implementing a new warehouse management system. And a couple of years later, I got promoted to supervisor of the inventory accounting team. And it was around about that time that I met my now ex-husband, Connor's dad. So around about 4 years after that, I was promoted to logistics contract manager for Northern Europe. And it was a role that I loved and really one that taught me a lot, but also allowed me to see my family in Holland nearly every week, which was great because I was always very, very homesick. A few years later, a few years after that, another promotion. Then I was leading a team responsible for the supply chain relationships with supermarkets and wholesalers. And this is really where something shifted for me. Yes, we delivered great results as a team, but what I really loved was building the team and creating an environment where people could thrive and really watch them grow into in confidence and in capability. And when I started that role, I was pregnant and Connor was born in that same year. And becoming a mum really helped me to draw a clear line between focused productivity at work and being fully present at home. I was able to switch off, and that balance really, really mattered. Connor wasn't sleeping much at the time, and I continued to be very, very homesick. My relationship with my husband wasn't too good, and I was starting to fall asleep on the motorway as I was traveling around the UK. So you could say that my mental and emotional state was deteriorating, but I was very, very good at hiding that and at keeping up appearances. And no one really knew how I felt under the surface. So it's a bit like that swan gliding across the water, but paddling like mad underneath to keep afloat. In around 2005, I made a sideways move to project and change manager, which was probably my favorite role, not really because of the title, but because of the people. I'd always been fascinated by what makes people tick, what holds them back and what moves them forward. Why do people do the things they do, or why don't they do the things they could do to improve their lives? And in this role, I really started to see how very capable leaders sometimes drifted and how stress and politics really and very quietly started to drain their energy. And also how easy it is to keep climbing a ladder, keep climbing a career ladder that you're not even sure you want to be on. And I also realized something about myself as well. I had no interest in corporate politics at all, but I had a very, very deep interest in helping people move beyond where they thought they were stuck. So the roles that followed as an ocean freight buyer and then starting working for myself as a supply chain consultant, all of those roles built capability, but there was always a common thread there, which was to help people think better, to lead better, and to ultimately live better. So becoming a personal and professional coach a few years later was a no-brainer, especially because for many, many years I had suffered from depression and anxiety. I'd been in a very toxic relationship with a narcissistic sociopath. And as I came out of that relationship, I found out I had breast cancer. I was really in a very, very bad place mentally, completely burnt out. But all of this made me realize that there really must be much more to life than this. It cannot be that I'm just meant to be here in survival mode without any enjoyment and just feeling stressed and depressed and overloaded all the time. So around about that same time, I got introduced by a friend to the coaching program that I now teach. And I can tell you within a week, my life started to turn around. I started to realize that by changing my thinking, my experiences started to change. And my life changed so significantly that I really wanted to share what I had learned with other people and help them create those same improvements as well. And now I'm fit and healthy. I have great relationships with the people in my life. My son just became an airline pilot. That was a dream of his since he was 5 years old. So hashtag proud mama. And if you've been following me, you will have seen me posting about this quite regularly. I bought my dream home. I renovated it. I go on amazing holidays. Great, great stuff going on in my life. But more than anything, I feel good. Genuinely feel good every day. I wake up excited for my day. I have little or no stress in my life. I now very easily and confidently set my boundaries, and I do the work that I love to do. In fact, I even wrote a book on time and activity management called Plan a Shit Day. And I'm really not telling you this to impress you, by the way. I'm just sharing my story to illustrate that if I can do it, if I could change my life so much, so quickly from where I was, and if my clients can do that too, then you definitely can as well. So many of the leaders that I speak with as a supply chain consultant feel stuck. They're successful on paper, but that success mostly comes at a personal cost. And over time, that's a cost that they can no longer justify. Now, surprisingly, I mentioned it before, this isn't about fixing yourself. There really is nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong with you. But it's about actually understanding which is what's in the way of you moving permanently toward a stress-free, a balanced, a productive, and most of all, an enjoyable life. But before we can start to help you shift those things, I have to explain some concepts first. So think back to what you wrote down in the beginning. What is something that you would love to have happen in the next 6 to 12 months? What would make the biggest positive difference in your life in that time? And I asked you to consider what you believe is holding you back and what you think needs to change. So let me tell you, the only thing that really needs to change is your thinking. Let me explain. So all of your results are a direct reflection of what's going on inside of you. And until we change what's inside, nothing can ever really change on the outside. So right now, you're living the way you're living, you're feeling the way you're feeling, you're doing the things that you're doing or not doing because you know how to do that. You identified that you'd like to be, do, or have something different. But the thing is that nothing's going to happen if you keep doing what you've been doing on your own. Would you agree? So what we have to do is shift what we call your paradigm. So you might ask, what's one of those? That's what I said when I first heard that word. So we explain that a paradigm as a multitude of habits that are fixed in your subconscious mind. It's your belief system, if you like, your conditioning. And it's stored in thought programs and patterns. You could call it your blueprint. So if you want to change your results, we have to shift those paradigms, the way that you're thinking. We have to change that blueprint that you're currently operating from. Because you really cannot go beyond what you believe to be true. And I always say, if you think that you can, if you think something is possible, you're absolutely right. And if you think that you can't, if you think that something isn't possible, guess what? You're also right. But the actions that you would or wouldn't take will be very, very different, depending on what you believe to be true for you. And a big part of your paradigm is the way that you see yourself. That's your self-image. And you can never outperform your self-image. So to get to where you want to be, to move from maybe stress and overload to a more enjoyable, calm, relaxed, peaceful life, you've got to first create the version of you that has already achieved what it is that you would like to be different. So I just want you to think for a minute. When you are that person that you want to be, when you've reached that point that you want to reach in the next 6 to 12 months, who is this person? How does that person think? How do they feel? What do they believe about themselves and about the world? What do they believe is true? How do they act? Another question is who are the people that they might spend their time with, and what kind of a decision maker are they? So really give that some thought. What would it be like for your family if you were able to make that shift towards what you would love to have happen? Really let that sink in for a moment. Now, listen, you can have anything that you want. I always say, if you can think it, you can be it, you can do it, and you can have it, because otherwise that idea would not have come up for you. You definitely already have everything inside of you to achieve it, to make that change, that shift. We've just got to bring that part of you to the surface. But the thing is, before you can have or achieve anything, before you can experience what you prefer, you've got to make that committed decision to become that person first. You cannot live your goal unless you are the person living that goal, right? So can you see how this is what needs to be changed before you can really experience what it is that you would like to have happen? Like I said, right now, you're not living the way you're living. You're not feeling the way you're feeling. You're not doing the things you're doing or not doing because that's what you want. It's because you know how to do that. And you and I, we both know, right, that you're worth more than that. I know it and you know it, but your subconscious mind doesn't know it yet. It just didn't get that memo yet. And it's really not just my opinion, I'm not just making it up. Research has shown that our subconscious mind controls about 95% of all of our thoughts, all of our emotions, all of our actions, and all of our decisions. So that means that your paradigm and your self-image is controlling 95% of your entire life. We're on autopilot most of the time. We do things in an habitual way. A habit means that you do something without thinking. So we feel, we think, we make decisions, we interact. We do lots of things out of habit, automatically without conscious thought. So it really is quite a black and white deal. If you don't change that paradigm, nothing's going to change. If you don't change that blueprint, nothing will shift in your life. And there are actually two ways to change your paradigm. So the first one is through what we would call a very strong emotional impact. It's like a shock to the system, and it actually tends to be negative. And the problem is that you can't control that emotional impact. And because they're usually negative, that's not the way that we want to change your paradigms. Now, get that pen and paper, write this down, because when you really start to understand what I'm going to say next, that will change your life forever. So the second and the most effective way to change that paradigm is through the constant spaced repetition of new ideas over and over and over again, probably combined with the help of an experienced mentor. So how do we make this change? Well, first of all, we've got to realize that everything starts with a thought or an idea in our mind. That thing that you'd like to have happen, that shift that you would like to make, it is currently a thought, an idea, isn't it? And it's in your mind. Everything we experience in our tangible world was first a thought in someone's mind, someone else's mind, or in your own mind. So I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute if you can. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. And once they're closed, I'd like you to think of a cup of coffee and then a banana. Think of a hot air balloon, a sandy beach with the sun shining on your skin. Now think of your front door. Think of your car and the color of your car. Now think of your fridge. How many doors does your fridge have? And does it open to the left or to the right? Now open your eyes. So did you sort of see the coffee, the banana, the hot air balloon? And were you just for a moment on the beach? And when I asked you about the fridge, did you go to your kitchen in your mind and open the door to work out which way it opened? It's a really simple and maybe a silly exercise, but it tells us a few important things. It tells us that you can go wherever you want in your mind. It also tells us that you're in control of where you take your mind. And it tells us that we think in pictures, in images. So my next question, what does your mind look like? You think it's your brain? It's not your brain. Your brain is just an electronic switching station. So what does your mind look like? Most likely you have no picture of that, right? And we cannot work with something without having a picture or an image of it. So if everything starts in the mind, we need a picture of the mind to enable us to change our mind and to change our mindset, don't we? Now, back in 1934, a doctor called Thurman Fleet realized that physicians, he was a physician, realized that physicians were treating symptoms rather than root causes. And we most often do the same in our life and in business. We treat the symptoms, but not necessarily the root cause of a problem. There are lots of sticky plasters around. Now, for a person to be whole, Dr. Fleet realized that we had to treat people holistically. And he found that there was no picture of the mind. So he created one. And here it is. Now, bear with me because technology is not one of my strongest points. I'm just going to go and share my screen. 1 second. There we are. So I think you can now see my screen. So he created this picture and he started by drawing a circle. And then he drew a line across and he split this circle into the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And then he added a little circle, which he called the body. Now, from that conscious mind, you can see these antennas sticking out. So those are our 5 sensory faculties. And this is the faculties that we use to observe our world. We can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. So let's have a look at that full picture. Now, we have 2 parts of the mind. So we have a conscious mind and we have a subconscious mind. So let's focus on the conscious mind first. So our conscious mind is the mind where we think. It's our logical mind. It is where we can accept or reject an idea. And once we have accepted or rejected an idea, in fact, once we have accepted an idea, we can choose to label it. And we tend to label things, situations, people, things in our outside world, positive or negative, good or bad. Now, here's an interesting fact, because nothing can exist without 2 opposites. This is the scientific law of polarity. There is no left without a right. There's no hot without cold, no up without down. You can't be inside of the room if there was no outside to it. So that also means that there is no bad without something good in it, and there is no negative without a positive, and of course, vice versa, because both always exist. It's really just a case of what we choose to focus our attention on. Are we focusing on the negative or are we focusing on the positive? Are we accepting limiting thoughts or rejecting them? Are we accepting empowering thoughts or rejecting them? So then let's have a look at the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind works very, very differently. In fact, it has to accept everything you give it. And it is your emotional, your feeling mind. Your subconscious mind has to accept everything you tell it. And you just experienced that in the exercise we did, right? And the thing is that it takes everything you tell it, everything you impress upon it as true. It has no sense of humor and it has no judgment. So this is where your paradigms live, your habits, your beliefs, your programming, your conditioning sits here. And this is where when we label something, it causes us to experience it like that. For instance, if you say, this is going to be a difficult discussion, you can only experience that as difficult. So have you had any difficult conversations recently? Or are you planning to have what you might label as a difficult conversation? So reframe that, reframe it as a clarifying discussion or empowering conversation. And immediately you'll feel very, very different. Now, your body expresses what is impressed upon it by your subconscious mind through action. And this is where another universal law comes into play, the law of cause and effect. Every action has a reaction. So where that action and reaction meet, you could call that your results. Now think back to that difficult discussion. So when we label something as difficult, we will approach that meeting, that conversation with a certain expectation, with a certain energy, a certain body language, a certain choice of words, really, all being based on it being difficult. Now, when you label that same discussion clarifying or empowering, you'll approach that conversation with a different expectation, with a different energy, with a different body language, and with a different choice of words. And guess what? You're going to get a different result, and you'll experience it in a whole different way. So I'd like you to imagine that thing that you wrote down that's going to make the biggest difference in your life if it happened in the next 6 months. And then I would like you to write down 2 actions that you can take towards making that happen. It can be the smallest of things, right? It doesn't have to be massive. So write down 2 actions you can take. Okay. Now, write a date against each of the actions. When are you going to do this by? And I would suggest that you do it within the next 48 hours, if not in the next 24 hours. So once you've written down the date, sign your name next to the date. And then plan it in your calendar as soon as you've left this meeting. And I would love to know how you're getting on with that. Let me know in a couple of days. Okay. So let's think of another way of explaining this, what we call the stick person. So imagine that your thoughts are seeds that you plant in the soil, your subconscious mind. You can plant a beautiful flower or you can plant a poisonous plant. Now, if you nurture that seed, if you give it attention, you water it, the soil will grow it. It really doesn't care if it's a beautiful flower or a poisonous plant. It will grow it if you nurture it. So it's the same for your thoughts. If you're nurturing negative thoughts or possibilities, you'll grow a negative belief and you'll ultimately get a negative result. If you focus on the positive thought or possibility, you'll grow a positive belief and you'll get a positive result. So can you see how important it is to choose, and you can choose, we have complete freedom of choice, how important it is to choose the thoughts that you entertain, the thoughts that you give attention to. Ultimately, we become what we think about most of the time. And we always act from our belief systems. We always act from what is going on in that subconscious mind. We will take action from what we believe is or isn't possible, for what we believe is or isn't true for us. And that's exactly what makes it true for us. Now, there's a little spanner in the works because your paradigms control your logic. So this means that a lot of the time we can stop ourselves from entertaining those new ideas that might come in, those ideas that could well make a massive, huge positive difference in our lives. Because we tend to be very quick to think of all the reasons why we can't do something. Because if we don't have that belief system set in our subconscious mind that we can do something, that paradigm is going to cause us to believe that we can't. Okay. So, like I said, we're very, very quick, very often to think of all the reasons why we can't do something. Maybe now's not the right time, or this or that has to happen first. I've just got to finish this project first, or I can't reframe difficult to empowering or clarifying because that's difficult. But you can if you make the point of doing that. Now, a belief is just a thought that we keep thinking. It's just a story that we keep telling ourselves. And most of our beliefs are actually taught to us when we were very little. So we live by them, but we never really question if they're actually true. And that's what we're doing with my coaching. We explore the beliefs that are holding you back, the patterns that have worked maybe in the past for you, but don't no longer work for you. And then we change them to beliefs that align with your true purpose and with what you really want. We identify those habits that are not in line with what you want to achieve, and one by one we change them. Basically, you learn how to train your mind to focus on the thoughts and ideas that are aligned with who you are and what you would like to have happen. So, what is one belief that you have that is holding you back right now? And put it under the microscope. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Can I be totally 100% certain that this is true? And when you honestly explore that, you will probably find that most likely it is not actually true. You're just used to thinking that way about certain things, and we can change it. So, how do you train your mind? How do you stay in charge and in control of those thoughts? Well, good news, we've got 6 mental muscles to help us. And when we understand what they are and how to use them, things really start to shift very quickly and permanently. So let's explore that a bit more. These are your mental faculties, your mental muscles. So we have imagination. Now remember, everything is created twice. First an idea, then in real life. Ask yourself, what are you imagining? Are you imagining what you don't want, or are you imagining what you do want? And then we have reason. Our reason faculty gives us the ability to think, and it's a great, great tool when we use it correctly, but it can be our worst enemy when we use it to rehash things from the past that didn't go right last time, when we continue to think about things that might have caused us stress, and when we continue to think about things in the past in the same way over and over and over again. So use this reasoning faculty to think in a way that serves you. And then we have perception. This is literally your point of view. I'd like you to pick 2 things that are in front of you that you can see, and then turn around 180 degrees. Can you still see them? Can you see different things now that you couldn't see before? That's what we do in my coaching. You find a different perspective. You can use this perception to work out how you can do something rather than think of reasons why you can't do something. And then we've got the will. So the will gives you the ability to focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. For instance, it enables you to focus on what you do want, on creating that image and moving towards it. Because after all, like I said, you become what you think about. Now, the will is actually very, very easy to train. And it's literally like a physical muscle in the gym that you might train when you go to the gym. So a way to train it is to sit somewhere very quiet, maybe light a candle, no distractions, and just focus your attention on that candle. If you can't light a candle or you don't have one handy, put a dot on the wall and just look at the dot. In fact, people will just think that you're staring into nothing, thinking about something. So you can do that any time of the day. Now, focus on the dot or the flame of the candle. And notice when your attention moves away from it. And all you need to do is bring your attention back. And sometimes, in the beginning, you can only keep your attention there for a split second. But keep practicing, your attention will waver, bring it back, attention will waver, bring it back. And that is how you make your will stronger so that it becomes easier for you to continue focusing on what you do want rather than what you don't want. And then we have memory. So memory stores information. So let's look at information that helps you rather than limits you. It's like a filing system. So look in the filing system for things in the past that have helped you achieve what you wanted to achieve, rather than look for things or reasons why things didn't happen the way you wanted them to happen. And our last one is intuition. So intuition is our ability to pick up energy and to translate it. Now, we've all been in a situation, right, where someone has said something to us, but we knew that they were either not telling the truth or that they were meaning something very different to the words that they were using. That's the energy that we pick up. And if you have kids, we know when our kid's telling us a little fib, right? Because we feel it, we sense that energy. So another way I like to explain intuition is, imagine that who you are today is your version 1.0. And the person that you want to become in the future, the person that's living that thing that you would like to have happen, is your version 2.0. So your intuition is already there. It's already at 2.0, and it's guiding you to move from where you're at right now to where you want to be. But because our thought patterns are still in version 1.0, it's difficult for us to understand when version 2.0 is pulling us or guiding us somewhere, because it seems quite illogical. So my recommendation would be to follow it anyway, even if it does seem illogical. Your current way of thinking just isn't quite a version 2.0, but when that soft voice tells you to do something, do it. If it tells you not to do something, also listen to it, but just make sure that it's not a paradigm that is holding you back. Okay, good. So can you see how your mind is the most miraculous, the most amazing tool that we have? So let's start to use it properly. Let's start thinking differently about those situations that are causing you stress. Let's start thinking differently about how you use your time. Let's start thinking differently about what is possible for you. Remember, if you can think it, you can achieve it, because that idea would not pop up into your mind if you didn't already have everything inside of you to make that shift, to make a change, or to achieve something that you want to achieve. And I think that this is why mentorship is so important to our success, right? It's not just a transformation of the transfer of information and knowledge. It's really about application and accountability that will help you hit those new levels that you want to hit. Today's masterclass is great. You get information and now you know a bit more. But are you actually going to apply it? Are you really going to take those 2 actions that you wrote down earlier? Now, you may have every intention, but for most people, their old paradigm will kick in and you'll tell yourself you'll do it later, which most likely means you won't do it. Or you might even forget to do it. You might even forget all about it. So we go to seminars, we read books, we take a course, but more often than not, we don't follow through on the action. We don't apply the knowledge that we've gained. And that's what we call in my coaching our knowing doing gap. And it can get very frustrating because we know we can do it, we know we can do better, but we're not actually doing it. Now, there's nothing wrong with you at all. You're not doing anything wrong. If you're not failing, you're not lazy, nothing like that. All it is that it's those paradigms, that conditioning that is sitting in our subconscious mind that is basically controlling everything that we do, or most of everything that we do. So my own coach holds me accountable, stops me from drifting on the way to my goals. And when I talk to my clients, they always say that the accountability is one of the major benefits that they have from engaging with me as a coach. Having someone taking them out of their comfort zone, opening up their mind outside of that current logic and those current paradigms, and then guiding you towards where you really want to be. Super beneficial, right? Very, very valuable. So really all that's needed here is the right direction. Would you agree with that? Because without direction, we really are quite lost. Now, when I first started working with my own mentor, he made it very, very clear to me that it was impossible to shift my results on my own from my current level of awareness. I needed to really see myself from his level of awareness, which he was already at my 2.0 goal, 2.0 version. And if I was ever going to change anything, I would have to start seeing myself like that person too, like my version 2.0. And then what he did was, once I told him my goals, he refused to see me as anything other than being the person living that goal. And that gave me a lot of guidance, because he would not entertain any of my ideas that were not in alignment with that version 2.0. So let me share a couple of stories from my clients. So one of my clients was a supply chain director. He was working 80 plus hours every week. He had very, very little time for his young family, and he was very distracted when he was at home, always thinking about work. Worked lots of evenings and weekends. So once we started working together, he shifted his beliefs, he shifted his programming, and he shifted his perception. So he started working just 4 days a week. He started having breakfast and dinner with his kids and with his wife. He was doing the school runs. He was having date nights with his wife. And guess what? He got promoted shortly after that. Shortly after moving to working 4 days a week, he got promoted. And in a really very short time, he achieved some amazing results with his global team, really catapulting that company into the 21st century, centralizing operations. And he is right now on a 2-month sabbatical, taking a trip to Asia with his family. Nothing bad happened at work. In fact, they were very supportive of him. And now that he's on this sabbatical for a couple of months, his team have the opportunity to grow. He'll walk back into his work next month. He'll still be working 4 days a week, and he will have the most amazing memories to last him a lifetime. In fact, he's exploring some other sources of income as well. And all that really happened was that he went from believing that to do well in his career, to be a team player, to progress, he needed to work 80 plus hours a week. He changed that belief to believing that he would be much more productive and effective if he took his recovery time in time. And he would feel much, much happier if he spent more time with his wife and his kids. Another client of mine got made redundant, engaged with my coaching, and then set up business as a consultant. He chooses when he works and who he works with. He actually avoided having to up sticks and relocate for a job. And because of that, now gets to spend lots of time with his grandkids. Again, nothing other than what he believed to be possible changed. He just changed his perception, his beliefs, and then sort of the world fell into place with that. And on it goes. So many more examples how someone's life changed just by investing in themselves, by opening up their mind to other possibilities and by taking action towards that. So with the right direction, things will absolutely start to change immediately for you too, and for your family, for your friends, for your colleagues, for everybody else around you as well. So if you've been listening today and something has been resonating with you, maybe very quietly, but resonating, and if part of you is thinking, yeah, that's exactly where I am, then let me share what the next steps could look like if you decide that you don't want to keep doing this on your own. So I run a 6-month private membership, mentorship for leaders who are ready to really stop operating in stuck mode and start shifting at the deeper identity level. It's not surface level strategy. It's not about adding more to your plate. You're already busy enough. It's really about changing that operating system underneath how you lead, how you decide, and how you show up. We work together one-on-one, online, weekly, over 6 months. And we go really deeply into setting goals that are actually yours, not just ones that sound impressive, not just ones that someone else thinks you might need to achieve. We're going to be closing that knowing doing gap because, like most leaders, you don't lack information, you just lack that internal alignment. You'll get to understand how the mind works, and especially how it works under pressure, so that you stay in charge instead of reacting to outside circumstances. And we're going to be upgrading your self-image because you will never sustainably outperform the way that you see yourself. And then we'll work through what we call the terror barrier together. Every meaningful expansion brings discomfort. We know that, right? We know that from past experiences. So instead of interpreting fear as a stop sign, you're going to learn to recognize it as growth. And this is where leaders really separate themselves from the pack. We're going to be aligning your beliefs with behavior so that momentum starts to become natural and not just forced, not just hard work. We look at attitude and energy management, and it's really not fake positivity. It's really, really grounded leadership presence. And when you understand this properly, stress and overwhelm literally stop running the show. And then we'll build leadership from the inside out, because we cannot effectively lead other people if we're disconnected from ourselves, right? So we're going to build, if you like, authority without that burnout. And you definitely continue to have ambition. There's nothing you have to give up, but it will be without the imbalance that you might currently be feeling. So as part of that 6-month journey, you will also receive my time and activity management course. There's a money mindset module, there's a universal laws modules, and there are business strategy modules as well. And then we will also have a full life scorecard and a targeted action plan for you. And all of those things will support what we do in session, so that change isn't just a theory, it's really a positive change that actually manifests in your life, making a true transformation. Now, 6 months might feel right now too big a leap for you. So we also have a program called the Clarity Reset. And that's 5 focused one-on-one online sessions. We're going to clear the mental noise. reprioritize what actually matters, and realign your time and your energy. And then you're going to already be regaining that momentum that lasts in the right direction. And then if you later choose to move to that full mentorship, most of that investment into the clarity reset then rolls into that, rolls forward. Okay, so here's a last thought I'd like to share with you. You really don't need more podcasts. You don't need another book. You don't need another course. You don't need more information. And you definitely don't need to try harder. Because if effort worked, you'd already be where you want to be, right? You just need alignment. And what creates a shift is a decision. So if something inside of you knows there's another level, and by that, I don't mean more success necessarily, but more alignment, more clarity, more internal calm, if you like, peace of mind. Let's have a conversation. It's not a sales call. It's just a conversation. We'll look at where you're at, where you want to be, and whether working together makes sense for you. And if it does, we move forward. And if it doesn't, you'll still walk away clearer than before we have the conversation. Either way, you won't stay stuck. What I really don't want for you is that you leave here today inspired and then slip back into the same pattern next week. You are capable of so much more. Not by not doing more, but by shifting how you operate from the inside. And if you're ready for that shift, I would really, really be honored to embark on that journey with you. Thank you for being here. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here with you. I hope you did too. And I look forward to seeing you soon.